Life-or-death crises are not typically dealt with throughout the Gilded Age. Tragedies do occur, such as the death of Mr. Morris in Season 1 or the passing of Luke Forte in Season 2, although they are extremely rare. It appeared that the remaining characters would be secure for some time after the cliffhanger of John Adams' unexpected death in the previous episode. However, Episode 7, Excommunicated, delivers an even greater blow when George Russell's destiny is left unclear after a gunshot before everything cuts to black, giving the audience even less time to comprehend that shock. George is a major figure in the Gilded Age, so his possible death is startling and heightens the suspense for the Season 3 conclusion. As the bullet exits the gun, the episode ends, but George's situation becomes dire. The supporters are not only left on the edge of their seats, but it also appears out of nowhere. Actually, George had just won his grand proposal for the Transcontinental Railroad before the twist. Even though he has acquired a lot of enemies via his astute business operations, he has never been worried about violent revenge, which makes the attack all the more unexpected. But since the full extent of George's illness has not yet been disclosed and his family is still in the dark about what has transpired, this turn of events is certain to have an instant impact on the Season 3 finale. Not only is this type of violence uncommon in the Gilded Age, but George Russell had a lot going on in his personal and professional lives even prior to this cliffhanger. In Season 3, George has been trying to carry out his grandiose idea of building a transcontinental railroad while on the verge of bankruptcy, and the Russells have been fighting about Gladys' marriage. However, that issue appears to have been resolved, as Larry provides the solution to George's financial problems in Episode 7. Despite playing dirty, George defeats Risley Sage and regains his position as the ambitious, self-assured man his supporters know. George ought to be at his zenith, with his wealth and legacy assured, but tragedy also befalls him at this time. The episode ends with George celebrating his accomplishments and getting ready to leave his workplace when a surprise deliverman shows up. This is not considered strange until he takes out a gun, shoots Jones, George's associate, twice, and then points it at George. At the absolute least, George is gravely hurt, and even though the Gilded Age doesn't depict the bullet striking its target, unless he gains some action hero skills, there's a potential the shot may be lethal, particularly if George doesn't receive assistance in time. The conclusion of this episode alters the Russells' lives, making them more dependent on one another than before. George's survival is the first question, but the next one is who is trying to kill him and would they try again. George and everyone around him are put in further risk until the matter is settled because, even if he survives this attack, there is no assurance that there won't be another attempt. It may be too soon to name suspects because George's destiny is still uncertain, but it's no secret that the Russells have made more enemies as their prominence has increased. Like Bertha, George has his own group of rivals because of the ruthless business dealings that helped him become successful. He actually enrages Sage and Richard Clay, who both had the option of ordering the attack, in this episode alone. It's important to note that George and the Merricks also clashed in Season 3, but they ultimately gave up and sold him their shares, albeit reluctantly. Edgar didn't trust George at all during their meeting in Episode 6, and now that George has his family's railroad shares, he might be resentful enough to take harsh measures. In a similar vein, Sage storms out of George's office after George announces that he won. But according to Episode 7, Clay is the most plausible suspect. Despite their close collaboration in the past, Clay betrayed George once by openly admitting that he was running out of money and joining his adversary. After George prevails, he and Clay exchange scathing remarks, and George even threatens to expel Clay from New York. George may have been shot as a result of the heated debate, but it sounds like a too simple explanation. Whoever is after George is still out there and has shown that they are prepared to go to great lengths to achieve their goals. It's evident that neither George's family nor his admirers are prepared to say goodbye, even if his life is still in doubt. Given how important he is to the show and how difficult his family would be without him, it is probable that George won't make it through the shot. Thankfully, their money would be well taken care of. Larry has started to take over his father's business throughout Season 3, and while he is probably not ready to take over the company completely, he has shown himself capable of selling Jack's clock design and obtaining the mines for George. But Bertha would be devastated if George died. Although she appears to have everything under control, she has been having difficulties, particularly since she and George split up, as her family disintegrates throughout Season 3. George moved out of their home after she married Gladys off, residing at the club because he wanted time away from her. Bertha had done everything she could to make things right, even going to England to make amends with Gladys. Bertha may never fully recover if George passes away before she can win back his trust. George's safety is in doubt, and the Russell family as a whole is headed for a challenging situation.